about that other phone. I think my Pandora died. I don't know why. And this one won't pair with that speaker. I don't know why it won't either.
Belongings that were tossed onto the street by Pickens County Sheriff's deputies Monday morning, as city officials say the eviction was the result of safety code violations. In Jasper, some of the city's neediest residents say they were forced to stand out in cold, rainy conditions as they watched their belongings thrown into the street Monday.
Residents called and said they got us all outside and they're putting our stuff outside.
Amy Gorley, the founder of Refuge in Jesus Shelter, told Fox 5 the group was evicted after a months-long dispute with city leaders who said the building the shelter was in was in violation of a number of safety codes.
They finally succeeded today with a court order to throw us out instantly. So they came over and put everybody out, which now means these people are actually have nowhere to go.
Gorley says they initially agreed to vacate the property by March 15th because they found another building to lease, but Pickens County officials issued a stop work order and court injunction on the property, also citing a failure to comply with requirements from the fire marshal and environmental health office.
We needed showers put in. That's pretty much all that we needed, and some updating as far as fire code, and then we needed another septic tank added.
She tells Fox 5 they were in the process of making those changes for residents like James David Howard. What do you want to see happen from here?
Open the new building. In Jesus' name.
A statement from a city spokesperson said, quote, the shelter is being operated by a spiritual group that feels called to provide aid to the homeless regardless of the regulations of the city. The city recognizes there is a great need in our community for services to assist the homeless population and believes that our religious communities will rise to this challenge and help these people in need. In Jasper, Joy Dukes, Fox 5 News.
2 suspected thieves were electrocuted this morning at a power substation in Gainesville. Officers were alerted to a transformer fire on Atlanta Highway around 3 o'clock in the morning. Police say 2 men had broken into the area and tried to steal from the substation when they were killed by the electricity there. The men have not been identified. Clayton County.
White with the black. Right there. The white long sleeves with the black shirt. I mean, do you remember, I know you keep your pants pretty low. You remember, does that look familiar?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
That man is Desmond Holt. Police detained him based on evidence that they gathered. They then entered the room that Holt was staying in with the consent of the person who was renting it and found the distinctive teal and black handgun the victims reported seeing. Holt is facing several charges, including armed robbery.
The debate over short-term rental properties in the city of Atlanta reignited. Council members can't come to an agreement on how to regulate them. TMZ indirectly put the issue back in the spotlight when they posted video inside a Buckhead mini mansion. The Atlanta planning manager wants to allow an owner to have an unlimited number of short-term properties, but passionate pleas from neighbors have some council members rethinking the plan.
I have one nearby, and what they did is they have a 3-bedroom house, but they set up 18 mattresses in the basement, and they have 20 people coming and going all night long.
We have had nothing but chaos. It's like I live in a hotel. I have to meet new people every weekend. It's crazy.
As it stands, a short-term rental property can have its license suspended after 3 violations, but right now, the city isn't enforcing anything.
Tonight at 10, we talked to the State Department about what's causing the delay and the action you should take now.
And new details tonight.
Totaling in excess of 1 million barrels per day. They will start cutting production from May until the end of 2023, which will likely drive gas and oil prices higher. Experts estimate that gas prices will rise about 26 cents per gallon. The production cut would amount to about 1% of current production, and one expert says that it may take a significant part of the year for the effects to start showing up at the pump.
There you go.
Whether this really happened or not, well, that's quite frankly anyone's guess. But that's the allegation, at least, that in 2006, Donald Trump had an affair with Miss Stephanie Clifford somewhere in a hotel room in Lake Tahoe. Then, around that same time period, from 2006 to 2007, another woman named Karen McDougal, who was a former Playboy playmate, she claimed that her and Donald Trump also had an affair. Again, whether this is true or not is anyone's guess. For his part, it's worth mentioning that President Trump denies that either of these two affairs took place. But regardless, that's what the women are claiming. However, at this point, in 2006 and 2007, these alleged affairs are not publicly known about. This is just when the women allege they took place. Then, we fast forward the clock to the year 2011. That was when a magazine called In Touch Weekly interviewed Ms. Stephanie Clifford about her alleged affair with Donald Trump. However, after conducting the interview, In Touch Weekly wound up not publishing the article because at that time, Donald Trump's lawyer, Mr. Michael Cohen, he threatened to sue the magazine if they did. He threatened to sue them if they published the story, and so they wound up killing it instead. Then we fast forward again to the year 2016. The presidential election is in high gear for an indictment. However, despite these earlier assertions, and despite the fact that the case was dropped at the federal level, just earlier this year, the new Manhattan District Attorney, Mr. Alvin Bragg, he revived the case, he assembled a grand jury, and he has now indicted President Trump. And so that brings us perfectly back to the present day, wherein President Trump is in court, getting arraigned, and hearing the charges that have been filed against him. And moving forward, the two questions which will likely need to be answered will be, for one, whether there was indeed bookkeeping fraud on the part of the Trump organization, and that secondly, whether or not that alleged bookkeeping fraud was done in service of hiding campaign finance violations. We'll just have to see how this case plays out over the coming days.
I mean, I am curious how you see this playing out for Trump politically, because it seems just within the first 24 hours of this indictment, he already earned about $4 million in donations for his campaign. I think now it's past 7. So how do you see this playing out for him? Is he going to come out stronger, or are people not going to vote for him?
Well, this is the grand shooting in the foot. I think that's going to backfire on the Democrats with this, because you have to understand what Trump's political message was. Trump's campaign message would be deemed kind of extreme under normal circumstances. And let me explain. You have DeSantis coming in as basically going on the culture warfare front. He's going against wokeism and the Disneys and the grooming of kids, and that's his narrative. Mike Pence is coming out and saying, I'm going to give you America first without Trump. I'm going to...
And Joshua, the media, mainstream media, it almost appears that they're framing it in a way that Trump almost wanted the indictment to benefit from. What role does the media play in all of this?
Well, so I'd say on two fronts. First of all, I can say, I spoke at CPAC recently. Trump also spoke there. The energy was very low. And I'm just being honest with y'all. The energy was very low. And I know a lot of people who've seen Trump speak recently say that he's much more kind of like down-toned, he's much more calm, and it doesn't have that fire and fury, no, not using that intentionally, but it doesn't have that fire and fury that really defined his 2016 campaign. I think this, ironically, has changed that. Trump is fired up again, as are his supporters. Ironically, they brought back the energy that he had in 2016 through these actions. The other big thing is that when it comes to elected government, right, the way that we engage in our government as a voting populace, right, this is usually formed through debate. And there are usually certain topics that we vote on. We're not voting for a person, we're voting for issues. And normally politicians try to craft those issues very, very carefully, right? It's Queensberry rules. No striking below the belt, no hitting in the eye, no poking in the eyes. And Trump goes out there and calls everybody names and breaks all that. But aside from that point, right, Trump is defining the debate. Normally the debate is things like guns and abortion and maybe taxes, and then there's the cultural debates on the sidelines, which are considered the more extreme debates, like trans rights and so on like that, right? Trump is redefining the issue we are voting on. The issue Trump is defining that we are voting on is government corruption, which is not something I think any of them want to have us voting on. Because this is shining a giant spotlight on these issues, not just here in the United States, but globally, and all of this is on the line. America's entire influence, not just its legitimacy among Americans, but its legitimacy on the world stage is on the line with this focus on us. And so there's a lot to lose if this is not done in a fair manner.
Joshua makes
Man's right.
Good points that would cause anyone to give pause and think about
the ramifications of this historic moment in American history. I want to get back to something else, though, that you stated earlier about America, and from my perception of what you stated, is a beacon of hope to the world. And many people throughout the world still look at America and say, this is the city on a hill, shining a light, which is why so many people still try to come here to live in this country. What's at stake as we watch this moment unfold? Do we still have that shiny example of one nation?
To have this type of indictment around this falsifying business records in the first degree, the intent piece here is going to be critical. And what it means in common terms is that someone had to knowingly and intentionally falsify a business record to cover up another crime. So, for example, if someone is stealing from a company and then they falsify a business record to cover up that crime. And so this is going to be very difficult for the district attorney to prove, especially with respect to President Trump.
During NTD's live coverage on the Trump indictment earlier today, we heard from Americans about what they think about the indictment. Here's some highlights.
So we are here live in Collect Pond Park here in downtown Manhattan with, I would say, a couple of hundred Trump supporters on this side. And if you can see here, there's a barrier that the police set up. On that side is the anti-Trump crowd.
Never Trumpers.
Moved by the cops to separate them. Let's go take a walk. As you can see over there, over the course of the last hour, quite a few Trump supporters have shown up. Before, when it first started, there was more reporters than protesters. Now it's about 1 to 1. I would say one reporter for every one protester. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say, yeah.
Typical Manhattan protest, more reporters than there are protesters. Stay there. All right, so, as you can see, there's a lot of energy here among the pro-Trump crowd. A lot of people we spoke to, they told us that they think this is kind of a political job, that there's not enough evidence to actually indict him, and this was just a politicization of the Manhattan DA. On the other side, people are saying that, hey, you know, if the evidence showed that the grand jury had enough evidence to indict him, then let the process play out. It's kind of an interesting dichotomy here. Let's go see if we can talk to some people. Oh, this guy right here. Sir, what brings you out here today?
Support Trump all day. I'm actually a single-issue voter, abortion, and he kept his promises. And I love the Epoch Times, if I'm saying it right. But yeah. You got
or Hillary. Democrats should be ashamed of themselves. We shouldn't be afraid to support who is great for this country. What has Biden done? Biden, in my opinion, is a traitor, and he's compromised by China. Okay? I think just came out the other day how the balloons from China got sensitive information from this country, and Biden just let the balloons go. And they lied about it, his fake administration.
All right, so that's what's going on here. Thus far, the vibe is peaceful. I heard there's a fight that broke out. We didn't see it, but apparently one fight broke out. But everything here is peaceful, probably because the police did take good precautions to split up the park between the two sides.
You can see the entire replay of our live coverage on ntd.com and on our YouTube channel.
The system currently is under renewed stress after the failure of Silicon Valley Bank and Credit Suisse's rescue by UBS last month. The letter reads, "The stock market is down and the market's odds of a recession have increased. And while this is nothing like 2008, it is not clear when this current crisis will end." According to the CEO, the risks that led to the current crisis were hiding in plain sight. For example, interest rate exposure and the level of uninsured deposits at Silicon Valley Bank. Diamond also made blunt statements about the strategic risks China poses, saying China, using subsidies and its economic muscle to dominate batteries, rare earths, semiconductors, or EVs, could eventually imperil national security by disrupting our access to these products and materials. We cannot cede these important resources and capabilities to another country. It's not common for a global business leader to make such direct statements. Reporting by Arian Pastar, NTD News.
And other programs such as DALL-E 2 is released by OpenAI, and that can actually generate graphics. So I think graphic designers might be in trouble also.
Humans are also needed to check for misinformation created by chatbots, a problem recently popping up in journalism. Quoted, an internet resource for finding PR resources and experts for news interviews, has banned content created by chatbots because of error possibilities. Their moderators have begun using AI detection tools like GPT-0 to ensure the authenticity of text. I asked Leventon if he's had to replace any workers because of AI.
Not from my business. I've had a pretty steady stream of work that's been coming in, so I haven't had to, lay anyone off or drop any team members just yet. But if AI does keep improving, that could be a possibility in the future.
And in Cyprus, ChatGPT has been put into a robot named AI Einstein to incorporate it into lesson plans.
Here's a joke for you. Why was the math book sad?
If you look at the DoD process for decision making right now, it's totally upside down. And what we mean by that is we basically identify the bad guys, China, for example, and then we try to guess what their capabilities are going to be by looking at their trajectory of R&D, basically. And then we try to come up with a military strategy that's going to beat their military strategy based upon our two assumptions of what our capabilities are going to be. And in many cases, we assume that our capabilities are going to be better and we win at the war games, what have you. Okay. The problem is that's upside down in the sense that the competitive advantage is from the technology space underneath it. Okay. So what basically happens going back to the U.S. military strategy is they identify the competitors, they identify what their capabilities are going to be, they identify what technologies that are going to need for the new GWIS systems for this new strategy they came, a military strategy, and then they task the guys in the labs to develop it, and they assume China's developing the same thing, then it goes back to the R&D fill rate. Okay. What you have to do is not start with the military wargaming, but start with the technology wargaming. Okay. Where you actually look at it and say, we know it's not China's national technology strategy, which stretches way beyond the military. It's addressing all competitive environments. Economics, the economic, military, terrorism, social, everything else. Okay. So we know what that is. So what it becomes is, what technology strategy does DoD have to outmaneuver China's national technology strategy to generate what competitive advantages on the battlefield? Now, as we know, in Socrates, we determined that China executes their technology-based planning, developing their technology strategy, as a trial and error art. Socrates allows you to do it as a concrete science. What's the difference? As an art, the connection between an action and the exploitation of the technology and the resulting competitive advantage is only vaguely known. That's why, the great painters would paint 50 copies of a picture until they got it right and say, now it's correct. Because the connection between the action and the result was only vaguely known. That's why it's trial and error. In a science, it's concrete. F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration. Okay? That is Socrates. So now we can exploit technology with precision and accuracy. We know exactly, if you do this action, this is the results. If you develop this technology with this capability, will give you this competitive advantage on the battlefield. Okay, so you can exploit technology with unprecedented speed, efficiency, and agility. Where efficiency is how much cost is it going to cost you to develop that technology or deploy that technology in terms of money, manpower, natural resources. Okay, so what happens is we can develop a technology strategy, DoD technology strategy, which is going to outmaneuver China in the exploitation of the technology. Okay, which means now we are dictating terms to them, because we can exploit it with speed, efficiency, and agility they can't match. So all of a sudden, all they can do is try to react to us. So we can lay out a technology strategy which is many plies ahead, cycles, such that they're just reacting to us, and they can't react fast enough in order to counter the competitive advantage we're constantly generating. Okay, but here's the other key part to that. We now know, because we have the initiative, that we know in pretty precise and accurate detail what competitive advantage the U.S. warfighter is going to have at what points and times relative to what competitors in what scenarios, going out 5, 10, 20 years. So now
are directly opposite Taiwan, while Palawan is near the disputed Spratly Islands in the South China Sea. The Chinese regime has built artificial islands there, equipped with runways and missile systems. The announcement came amid fury from the Chinese regime. They argued the new bases would provide U.S. forces with a staging ground close to southern China and Taiwan.
Responding to the news, the Pentagon said it does not seek permanent basing in the Philippines. A spokesperson explained.
And this is just one additional aspect that will increase training between our two countries. These new locations will strengthen the interoperability of the United States and Philippine armed forces and allow us to respond more seamlessly together to address a range of shared challenges in the Indo-Pacific region, including natural and humanitarian disasters.
Australia has banned TikTok from all federal government-owned devices over security concerns. Let's look at the details.
The country has joined several other Western nations in the move, including the U.S., Canada, Britain, and New Zealand. The state of Victoria will also ban the app on state government-owned phones. The ban follows concerns that the Chinese regime could use the Beijing-based company to harvest data to advance a political agenda. TikTok said it was extremely disappointed by Australia's decision and added that it should not be singled out. The ban will come into effect as soon as feasible. Exemptions would only be granted on a case-by-case basis and with appropriate security measures in place.
Beijing responded on Tuesday saying Australia should abide by the rules of market economy and fair competition. The first U.S. embassy in the South Pacific island nation of Vanuatu is Washington's latest efforts to boost its presence in the region and counter Beijing's influence. Vanuatu comprises about 80 islands and maintains diplomatic relations with the U.S., but severed ties with Taiwan 2 decades ago. The Chinese regime has begged most Pacific Island nations to shift diplomatic allegiance from Taipei to Beijing. And the most recent, the Solomon Islands and Kiribati in 2019. The Biden administration is now focusing on improving ties with allies after failed attempts at direct talks with Beijing. Washington also announced plans to open embassies in Kiribati and Tonga following the February opening of a U.S. embassy in the Solomon Islands. Why are these small Pacific Island nations so important? Back in the Second World War, these islands provided vital basing and anchorage for Japanese naval forces, boosting Japan's ambition to invade Australia and even the United States, which failed. The regulator of China's securities industry recently met with top executives on Wall Street, saying investors are welcome to expand to China. But months after lifting its COVID-19 lockdown and reopening borders, how's the country's economy holding up? We spoke to Antonio Graceffo, China economic analyst, for his take.
In May, you know what's going to happen? 10 million kids are going to graduate university. 10 million. They already have 20% youth unemployment. What's going to happen when 10 million more kids graduate university? Where are they going to find jobs?
More on that after the break here on China. Barricades in place inside the residential area. The situation later evolved into physical conflicts. Videos circulating on the internet show police officers arriving on the scene at night. The next day, a man in black attacked passerbys on the street with a kitchen knife. The incident happened in Chongqing, another big city in the region. The man was beaten and restrained by a group of people with wooden chairs. Similar violence broke out in other parts of China. In northern Jilin, a barber shop owner killed his customer over disputes about hair coloring.
They're going nuts.
In Fujian, a man killed 2 people and injured 1. A Chengdu resident told Radio Free Asia that he thinks people are turning to violence to vent their anxiety. The resident, surnamed Yang, said many people lost their source of income during the past 3 years of pandemic lockdowns. The reeling economy combined with China's strict authoritarian rule have exacerbated hatred between people, to the point that small disputes can escalate into mass violence or conflicts quickly. Is the U.S. close to a war with China? A top U.S. general says Beijing is fully convinced that conflict is looming.
And see how busted up that screen is? especially up here at the top where the camera is. And that's what's playing the music. About that other phone, I think my Pandora died. I don't know why. And this one won't pair with that speaker. I don't know why it won't either.